Welcome to Divisive Issues, the foul-mouthed, spoiler-filled comic book podcast where four friends celebrate Christmas.
Yay.
Yay.
Happy holidays, everybody.
No, Darryl. Merry Christmas.
Trump won.
Merry
War
Christmas,
is
everybody.
over.
The war on happy holidays.
War on holidays. Okay, so we did something special, right?
Wait, we're going
Yes.
to introduce ourselves?
Christmas is always
Oh,
Oh
special.
yeah,
I'm-
how do we do the
okay.
show again? I forgot.
Sorry, I am Ryan.
I am Sly.
I'm Phil, even though I'm sick.
And I'm Darryl.
And what is the show about? It's about controversial comics and stuff like that. But now we're
Noteworthy
doing-
comic book history, and we're
Yeah.
doing a TV show instead.
Yeah. Special edition, first time one in like a year. We're doing a TV show. We're doing the X-Men cartoons, the Xmas specials. Wow.
So,
Happy Christmas.
Happy Xmas.
we're-
now it's Xmas. That's what.
yes, now it's Xmas. So we're doing 2 episodes from the 90s cartoon,
Yeah.
which has gotten a little bit of buzz lately because it's on Disney+.
That's how I watched it, actually.
And then 1 episode from X-Men Evolution.
Also
Yes.
on Disney Plus.
Oh, it is.
Oh, really?
I
That's
watched
cool.
that there too. Yeah.
That's very cool. I've actually never watched X-Men Evolution except for this episode just
So,
today.
yeah,
Not today,
I haven't
yesterday.
seen, I think I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I don't think I sat down to watch a full episode. Or if I did, when in one ear out the other, like when I must have watched the Superman cartoons or the Spider-Man stuff. Or I was like, I think I've seen this. I cannot tell you I've ever actually watched it.
X-Men Evolution. So this is one reason why I want to do this because it shows like how my tastes changed dramatically. When I was a kid, I loved the X-Men cartoon, the '90s one, and I thought X-Men Evolution was absolute fucking trash. Like the worst fucking show. It was like all teen drama shit. All the X-Men were teenagers. But now I think the X-Men cartoon is exceptionally goofy. While the X-Men Evolution it might be my favorite. It's definitely my favorite superhero cartoon of all time. I don't know what's my favorite cartoon of all time.
Wow.
That's high praise.
Wait. Like more than like Avatar: The Last Airbender?
The thing about Avatar is Avatar. When I watch Avatar by itself, I would say yes, Avatar is better by itself. But the thing is, when I finished Avatar, I got into Korra, which wasn't as good, and I got into the comics, which weren't as good. But X-Men Evolution made me interested in X-Men comics more. So that
So
segue.
he has more good feelings from finishing
okay.
X-Men Evolution. Yeah. So I was laughing there because if you know Phil, his sacred cows are Battlestar Galactica and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, so when I hear X-Men Evolution's better, I'm like, I respect X-Men Evolution, but
Yeah, and I feel like there's so many times on this podcast where we say something that pisses Sly off, and I don't think we've gotten to a point where Phil's been just super pissed off at you for not liking a show.
That's why I said my favorite, not the best.
Yeah,
Avatar is better.
no, it's okay. I can appreciate that because I actually like X-Men Evolution a lot too. I watched both the '90s cartoon and the X-Men Evolution when I was a kid, but not extensively. I've seen episodes of both. I was actually going to ask you, Sly in particular. The first episode we do for this is going to be the introduction to the Morlocks. And did you make me watch that before, or did you make me read a comic about that?
That's the comics.
Or-
So I was toying on how to do this, but since we settled on doing Xmas with X-Men, Darryl has never read the Morlocks. So when I was watching the Xmas cartoon, it's very heavily reliant on the Morlocks story, on who they are.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, either we just filled Darryl in on more comic bullshit backstory, or we just watched the Morlock introductory episode. So Phil basically saw the superior comic version of this introduction.
Okay.
But it's based on a lot of the X-Men TAS specifically are basically that's one reason I don't like it as much anymore, because they're basically shittier versions of better comic stories, and the Morlock one is a good example of that.
When I was watching it, I was like, I've either seen this before or read it before. And I don't know why, but I know this story I knew everything that was going to happen.
So for me, there were 2 '90s TV shows that our family loved. It was Batman animated series, and it was the X-Men animated series. And I know this well enough that the Morlocks, the first season of the X-Men show is almost verbatim in my head. I could repeat lines from it as they were coming up.
Because the Morlock episode's from season 1, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas the Christmas one, I think is from season 2.
Season 3 or something like that.
Yeah, which is where we were watching a lot less of it. Whereas for at least the first season, we recorded the entire thing on tape. And like as a kid, like you just put it on while you were playing with like action figures and whatnot. And so I have a firm fondness for X-Men. And you said it's really goofy, and I do not contest that. I love how goofy it gets at sometimes.
I think what's weird about the goofiness is like the pacing feels so awkward sometimes. Where
Yes, yeah, it
it's
does.
so janky. Like the way that scenes go together, I'm like, is that the end of that scene? It's very strange because I rewatching it, I'm like, I don't remember it feeling so bizarre. To
And the
watch.
animation isn't that great. The
Yeah.
art style is very cool at capturing the 90s comic style, but they don't fully like animate very well. A lot of the fight scenes seem so fucking awkward.
Yeah.
See, I will contest that one of the reasons why I love the 90s X-Men cartoon, and while I understand what you mean about it just being like crappy versions of the comics, I think that not that I like that it's crappy versions,
That's great.
but I think that like as a fan of the cartoon in the 90s, like when I started reading comics, I understood like the main cast right away. I knew everything that was going on. Like it was easier to jump in because I knew all these characters from the cartoons. Where something like X-Men Evolution might be a better show, it still was like you said. It's like it's different. They're all teenagers, but like Beast is way older. And
Yeah,
like,
there's like a rogue Cyclops romance going on, which I was
Yes,
unprepared
we'll get to
for.
yeah. But like I really, really appreciate how in the 90s a lot of those cartoons, like the Batman, the Superman, the X-Men, and the Spider-Man cartoons, I think one of the reasons why they were so beloved is because they exposed us all to these worlds in a pretty faithful way, even if it's like very kid friendly.
Yeah.
Or like Wolverine's not allowed to cut anybody and can only fight robots.
Yeah,
and
like
stuff, but,
Captain Marvel I knew her from the X-Men cartoon.
Yeah, like, and I feel like those back in the day, like in the 90s, they made an effort to make it so you can jump into the comics instead of making it like, let's make it super, super accessible. So then when you go to the comics, you have no idea what's going on. I feel like they just, like, I remember watching an episode where like Cable is just like, I'm a time traveler, I have lots of big guns. And then I was like, oh,
remember
okay,
that episode.
I know Cable now,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely I definitely agree a lot with what you're saying, and I feel it is very interesting how the 90s were the last era in general, how when the media tried to reflect the comics rather than vice versa.
Yeah,
And-
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but the reason why X-Men Evolution, and we'll get into this when we get to X-Men Evolution, X-Men, the 90s cartoon is just the comics regurgitated, but the X-Men Evolution has my favorite version of most of the characters. Like, I never like, it's actually kind of, that's one bad thing about it, is it actually spoiled a lot of characters in the comics for me. I don't like Rogue just being Colossus, basically. I love her not having any other powers besides absorbing powers, because that's a very unique power, and she never uses it in the comics ever.
It's a
I
very
agree with
unique
that.
power.
I agree
And
with that so
that's
much.
all she does is evolution. All she does is steal people's powers, and it's always some cool situation where she does, and I think they do in this episode we're gonna watch here too.
It reminds me of like everyone can like fly. A lot of these X-Men
Exactly.
can fly at least. Where
Yeah.
you're just like,
I-
that's not like cool. It's like
I hate Standard Rogue for that. She is literally the most boring. She's like, I have the generic powers.
yeah,
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like they even brought up in the X-Men Evolution cartoon how Archangel's in it. And they're like, hey, you can fly. Isn't that really cool? And I'm like, is it? Like, everyone can fly. But I guess in Evolution, I wasn't thinking about, like, that Rogue couldn't do that. Or, like, does Jean Grey fly in Evolution?
No, she doesn't, and that's one thing. That's one thing about Angel in general. Angel was created in the '60s comics where no one flew. Magneto didn't fly. Jean Grey didn't fly. No one flew. But when Angel left the team, basically, and when Chris Claremont, the most famous writer, started writing X-Men, he basically gave everyone flying powers. Storm, Jean Grey, Magneto, everyone got flying powers. So when Angel rejoined the team, like years down the line, like 10 years later,
it's like-
he was like, "Wow, you suck." Basically, in the video game when the character gets power creeped out, he basically got power creeped out of the X-Men.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is funny because Chris Claremont wrote one of my favorite flying-based X-Men stories where the Blackbird blows up and they're all falling and only like 2 of them can fly and they're like, we have 6 people, we're just fucked.
Yeah.
But then eventually everybody could fly.
Also,
Yeah,
his
yeah.
wings
That's a good
his
point.
wings have to be pretty like beefy because birds can fly because they are so light.
His-
His wings are carrying a human body.
His secondary mutation is he has hollow bones, but you're right. It makes no sense that he could carry people of that limitation.
yeah.
I like the idea of someone with hollow bones who's still like fighting super villains.
yeah, getting punched.
Punch
No,
slugs.
none of the X-Men powers make any sense. Like, try to explain
Yeah.
Storm. Try to fucking explain Storm. Try it, motherfucker.
Yeah.
She whirlwinds.
Like, just by Storm existing, it should put the planet into constant, like, just disaster.
Like,
Just
how
the
does
way
a
energy
mutant, how does a
works.
mutant DNA make you interact with the fucking weather? How is that possible?
Yeah.
How does it make you interact with magnetic fields, huh?
Yeah,
Wise
exactly.
guy?
No one makes sense. That's why I find funny people argue about Cyclops. They make all these fucking dumb explanations for like the punch dimension and stuff like that. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It literally, no one makes sense. Stop trying to make it make sense.
All right, so getting into these episodes, it starts off with the X-Men. This is the Morlock, the introduction episode, and it starts off with the X-Men in the danger room where they're all training. And there's like guns and turrets out of the wall. And my favorite thing is like a saw blade whizzes past Jean Grey, and then Professor X is like, "I'm preparing you for real life like situations." I'm like, giant saw blades.
My favorite thing is, so when I picked this episode, I just picked it just because I didn't expect Darryl to be so knowledgeable in X-Men. But now we can at least get the audience caught up with Morlocks. But it's funny. I'm glad I picked this episode too because this has a lot of the memes from the X-Men TAS. Including Jean Grey being useless. Every fucking time Jean Grey gets into a fight in the cartoon, she like, holds it for like 5 seconds saying, "I can't hold it," and she falls down.
Yeah.
She basically does the same thing.
Jean really, really sucks in this episode.
As a kid, I literally did not know she was a member of the X-Men. I thought she was like Alpha 5 for Power Rangers. Because she was almost never on the actual field missions. She was always with Professor X, and she sucked whenever she actually did anything. So I was like, she can't be an X-Men. She just sucks too much.
I always thought, I don't know, Jubilee was the weakest member of the team, but she was like supposed to be. She's up and coming.
Yeah, I thought they were equatable. I thought like they're both like not real X-Men.
Yeah.
But also, it makes sense why Jubilee's like that, because Jubilee is like this young kid that they just
so
adopted.
she's up and
So
coming. She's training.
Yeah, she's the audience surrogate who's just learning everybody and has never really fought before, never been a superhero team. It makes more sense for her to be like, I don't know how to fight giant saw blades.
Yeah.
For Jean, she's super established and has been on the team for a really long time. It's weird that she's like, oh my god, I can't do anything.
She's one of the original X-Men. Like later on, they have an episode showing the original team. It's all the original X-Men. So that means she was on the team longer than Wolverine and fucking Storm.
Yeah.
So as they're training, these walls start closing in, like Professor X starts squishing them, and Storm tries to hold up the ceiling with her wind, and she starts getting like flashbacks because she has trauma from being a child and being trapped in like a collapsing building. And so she has claustrophobia, and she like almost passes out, and then she's like, "I'm sorry." And the professor is like, "You gotta, prepare yourself better, because if this happens in the field," and then she's like, "Don't worry, Professor. If this ever happens, I'll be fine." And then we got to, man, do I just love the Jean Wolverine romance in this.
Oh my
this is
God.
so, and watching this too, I'm like, this is a really bizarre thing to include in like a kids show, because Jean and Scott get married and Wolverine's like mad at this. And it's weird to have like adultery be a central part of, or like at least like feelings of like questioning whether or not there will be adultery in a kids show.
I don't think I view it as adultery. I view it as a love triangle, and almost every piece of fiction seems to have
It's a love triangle, but the problem is that Jean and Scott are dating.
But they don't get married until. But after they get married, they dropped the romance.
No, because doesn't Dark Phoenix happen after that, and there's still like things going on between Wolverine and Jean?
Yeah, but it's like, Mike, I care about you as a person. Like, well, he probably wasn't boned if he had opportunity, but it's never like implied. Like, he never.
Well, I mean, that's the way it's always felt. Is that Jean's been trying to friend zone him, but he's always been like, he goes always so hard because he's just like, Jean.
I love his voice actor too.
Yeah, Jean.
That's one thing I prefer about X-Men TS by a long shot. All the voice acting is so distinct. Everyone's voice is much more natural. Like,
oh my god, fucking Gambit. Jesus Christ.
Gambit's great.
I remember everybody thinking Wolverine was like the coolest ever in the 90s, but he is such a fucking piece of shit in this show.
He's so grumpy.
And that's the funny thing, because the show takes Wolverine's side for the most part, so a lot of people grew up thinking Cyclops is a dick, even though Cyclops...
But like Wolverine, when you watch it, he's such an asshole. He describes Jean as something he wants to own at one point.
Yeah, and he's always just like really, he's the downer of the team. Like when I was watching this, I was like, oh, he's like not like fun to be around.
He's like the
Gambit,
he's a cool character. He's a cool character. Like, I'm too cool for this. He's Shadow the Hedgehog. Like, fuck you. I'm too cool for this.
Well, one of my favorite. This isn't in this episode, but I just want to mention it because it's something Joe and I reference all the time. It's an episode where Gambit gets captured, and they go to like Gambit's childhood home, which he lives in this like really rundown old like pretty shitty house in Louisiana, and they walk in, they're like, wow, I can't believe Gambit grew up like this. Like Rogue says that, and then I think Jean is like, yeah, Gambit had such a tough childhood, and then Wolverine's like, yeah, Gambit's so messed up. Like, he's just so shitty.
But I mean, he was like tortured and experimented on, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine you have much
Yeah.
sympathy for other people when you. When
Yeah,
you
you're
have
like
much-
people. Yeah, why would you not be a bitter?
Yeah, he's sly, but like 100 years old. So Scott and Jean go out on a date, and as they're going on a date, they see this.
We should clarify when we talk about the romance. The romance scene specifically was Wolverine was injured from a previous fight, and Jean like tries to console him, and he's like, "Jean, I need you," and she's like, I gotta go, and she leaves.
Yeah,
She wants to
on a
go
date.
on.
So they see a little tiny green alien-looking boy with a jacket on, and he steals some food, and then
By magic, Leech's powers are to leech people's powers. He does not have magically teleport fruit. To
Yeah,
his
so
hands
he's
powers.
leeching Jean's powers, right?
So but he negates their powers. He does not steal it.
in this, I think he steals them.
Okay, that makes more sense. Then. Okay.
Otherwise, I don't get how he moved that.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, they changed it then. Okay, in the comics, all he does is negate people's powers.
we're just in the weeds with this, where it's like little tiny leech boy. His powers are.
No, but that's important because Leech is the central part of the X-Men episode.
Yeah.
So he steals some fruit, and then he runs down into a subway, and Jean and Scott chase after him because a whole crowd of people's running after him. They're like, we want to protect this boy, this mutant,
Yep.
from being hurt by these people. And then when they
Because
get
the
down,
gang is like, fuck mutants, we're gonna go murder this kid.
yeah, but they get down there, and there's a whole bunch of mutants in the subway, and they're like, no, fuck these people, we're gonna beat the shit out of them. And then Scott's like, oh, great, now we gotta protect the people from the mutants.
They're very
is
ugly
like-
mutants. Like they're not mutants like the X-Men. They're like one guy has like tar skin. One guy has like a mohawk and an eye patch. They don't look like the
Yeah, I love that they're supposed to be like all freaks, and like one guy's like skin is melting, Leech looks like this old like green raisin, and then one guy has an eye patch.
yeah. But they
One
don't
guy's
look like
big and
clean
buff.
cut. Like most of the X-Men look like clean cut American citizens for the most part, but these guys
Yeah.
look very different.
And so there's a whole big fight scene, and then this old lady comes out, and she says, everyone go to sleep, and everyone just passes out on the ground. And then you have, who's this lady? What's her name? Calypso?
I don't know
Callisto.
what's her name.
Calypso, yeah.
Calypso?
Callisto.
Yeah, it's all
Oh, I'm
lady.
just gonna call her Eye Patch. It's too hard to memorize.
Callisto, yes.
Yeah, let's call her eye patch.
So Calypso,
But there's two people with eye
It's
patches.
just so late.
Eye Patch girl and Eye Patch boy.
Oh, okay. The two genders, eye patch boy. And
She's the leader of the Morlocks, and she's like, hey, take Scott, Summers, and Jean. And she specifically wants Scott because it's later revealed that she wants to breed with him because she's like, I need
Yes.
a king.
That I thought was actually shocking for a kids show. She's like, he's gonna be basically my sex slave down here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm going to create a purebred mutant race. or
I think
whatever.
that's more explicit than even the comics. In the comics, she kidnaps Angel because, like, she's so ugly and she wants something pretty in her house, basically. Like,
Oh,
it's
so it's
weirdly
sort of like the
made it so
pet
she wants to breed
thing.
with him.
Yeah.
yeah, she explicitly says like, we're gonna breed.
Breed, yeah.
You will be my king, and you will make me baby.
And I want to again, like it's funny because it's like it's creepy already. But imagine this was like an old guy being like, I'm gonna capture one of the X-Men girls. And
Yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna capture
breed
Jean
her.
Grey, and
I'm gonna breed her.
The funny thing is, Morlocks is the same. The Morlocks actually did in the comics, though. They kidnap Kitty Pryde and try to marry her off to somebody.
Yeah, but that was when Kitty Pryde was like 14.
Yeah, so it's even weirder.
And before this scene happens, this is where you get Wolverine staring at the picture of. I like that he has a picture of Jean and Cyclops together, and he's just petting the Jean side. It's
Framed.
like,
Yes.
what?
It's framed by
yeah.
his bed.
Why not crop out her? Like, why do you gotta have him there too?
Well, that's what he
But
does.
hasn't
He gets mad about the idea that they're together, and he takes his claws and crops it out with his claws, basically.
Cut.
Yeah,
it.
his middle finger claw, and then just
Yeah.
claws him out. And
What
then
a dumb guy. Why is he the most popular X-Man?
And then when Calypso
Callisto.
Callisto.
tells who's Calypso? That's what I'm wondering. When Callisto tells Cyclops that she plans on marrying him, she shows Jean's like strung up at the top, and she's like, either you marry me or we beat you guys up. And also forgot that Leech stole Cyclops' powers, so he can't use his laser eyes.
Yeah, so he has basically power. Like he has normal eyes. He doesn't have his glasses
Yeah,
anymore. His,
but
like,
Jean has her powers, and she tries to fight them. And it's funny because there's like a scene of just her pushing everyone back with her powers. And it's like, her power is kind of just lasers in this show. She's not like
It really
going
is.
into
Everyone-
Everyone's
minds.
lasers.
I hated that so much rewatching this. I'm like, oh wow, that is literally the same
Yeah.
as everyone else. It's a different color, like beam.
Yeah, it's blue.
Which is interesting that they chose to do it this way because, like, I feel like in the show, every character has such a unique voice and personality that, like we said, like, it opens with, like, Storm talking about her claustrophobia and, like, all that kind of stuff. But then their powers are all just shooting beams.
Yeah. But Jean can't fight back against everyone, and she sends, like, a signal of help to Professor X, and then she gets overtaken. And then Professor X gets the X-Men together, and it's like, all right, you guys need to go down there. Since Cyclops is out of commission, Storm becomes the new leader of the X-Men. She's the second in command. And then they go down to the subway, and then we just have a whole bunch of fighting going on. And
between the X-Men and the Morlocks, X-Men sneak down there, and Morlocks fight them.
To be fair, like, I enjoyed this because it was at least, like, this is where they get to be quippy, and I don't know whether it's probably because I watched it as a kid that I was just enjoying them, like, shooting these absolutely dumb asinine quips at each other all the time.
Yes.
There's also where you get the so they find Jean first with the old lady that made all people fall asleep before.
Yep.
And this is another meme scene covered with scorpions. Cause she starts saying, covered with scorpions. Wolverine's like, no, I'm covered with scorpions. Stop.
It's I no joke reference that at least once a week. It's so perfect.
If I ever have a secret society for my family and stuff, that is going to be my key enter phrase, because we still reference that too amongst each
what
other.
A secret! You just voiced it on the podcast, Darryl.
Dang
All
it.
our listeners, our 20 listeners, will know.
Yeah, how to get into my secret family society.
I do like how I it's with illusion magic. It's, sometimes I'm always skeptical of how long you would buy into it after you're like, I was fighting mutants and all of a sudden I'm covered in scorpions. But Wolverine realizes he's like, this fucking old lady's doing this. He tries to kill her. Like,
he says, like, what are you doing to my head? And then he just tries to kill her.
That's one reason why they're writing the show. Like, he breaks out of it just because he breaks out of it. He doesn't use his senses or anything to break out. He's just like, "Fuck you, lady." And like later on, he fights.
Why wouldn't he realize that she's causing this somehow? You know,
yes.
I feel like that makes sense.
It's the lady who keeps yelling, "You're covered in scorpions. You're covered in scorpions."
And there's two possibilities because there's later on a character called Proteus who warps reality, and that fucks up Wolverine's mind to have his senses lie to him. You could have done either that or Wolverine's senses reveal the truth, but they don't do either. Wolverine just says, "I'm no longer hypnotized. You're done."
Yeah, and the same thing happens where Wolverine's he brings Scott back. He finds the real Scott somewhere, and as he brings him back, the lady appears again, and she's like, "You hate him because Jean loves him." It's like Jean's ruining, or things are being ruined because of Cyclops. So he starts to get mad, and Jean tells him to fight it, and then he just like collapses on the ground, overcoming it. And it's kind of like there with Sly, where it's like there's no like reason. He just like had the willpower to overcome it.
Well, the way I took that is he's fighting like Scott first, and then she tries to get him to fight Jean, and he can't fight Jean because he loves her too much. Like, that's because he's like all super willing to go kill Cyclops. That's when he says like, "You're stopping me from possessing something I should own," or whatever.
Well,
he says.
he's just here to save Jean. He doesn't give a shit about Scott at all. And that's why it's a bit like I can see on paper it's a big character move for Wolverine because he could just easily bump off Scott, but here probably the first time he treats Scott like a human being and doesn't try to kill him just to get laid with Jean.
Yeah.
So like,
I actually did appreciate that. Like, I know we're shitting on Wolverine. I used to not like him a lot when I was younger. I liked him more in this episode because I'm like, he does actually in the end do what's right because he's like, Jean loves Scott, so I should help Scott.
Yeah.
He says that, and I appreciate.
I like Wolverine a lot as a character. I want to be clear. It's just like in this show, he's just so mean.
It's interesting because this is him without. By this time in the comics, he got all like the Zen wisdom from being in Japan, stuff like that. He doesn't have any of that here. He's just, I want to fuck Jean, basically.
Yeah.
And so the Morlocks, they're at like a standstill against the X-Men, and Storm decides to approach Callisto and it's like, "Hey, let's have a trial by combat. Let's do a one-on-one."
The Scott
Wait,
body?
we should a really good scene. I really like. They think Scott is dead for a second.
That's what I was gonna say. She says, "You can have Scott back. He's dead." And they give him Cyclops' body, and he's like, "Get out of here. I'll give you safe passage." And then Wolverine's like, "Why don't we bring this body back in pieces?" And he goes to stab Scott's body, and Scott's body is not a body.
The shapeshifter.
Yeah, he says, I might not like Cyclops, but it doesn't stink like a Morlock.
Yeah, I like that too.
That was actually a well-written scene, which is what more this scene should have been like.
Now, one thing I do just want to say about how weird this, like, the tone that this episode takes is these guys it's even worse in the next episode, but these guys live in, like, all the X-Men live in a mansion, and they're all, like, pretty, like, attractive people, and they go down to the sewers, and they're like, we're freaks, you just saw a mob try to murder a kid just because we exist, and they're just like, these people fucking stink, and they're ugly.
No, but they do
pieces of
say
shit.
they do try to invite them to the X-Men.
I know, but it's funny that they're making such crass insults about their appearances when that's why they're persecuted.
It's like they're overall trying to do the right thing, but the dialogue is still like, you're really kicking these people when they're down.
Yeah.
They probably do stink.
They should. Bill's right.
They live in the sewer.
Yeah, they're like, and their powers are all disgusting powers. It's like, I'm made of shit. It's like, oh,
you shouldn't be racist against Morlocks, but get out of the sewer, guys.
Yeah,
Come
like,
on.
They don't. Phil's like, well, it's true. If the stereotypes are true, I'm allowed to be racist.
I mean, if your power is like, I'm covered in garbage, it's like, you know.
Yeah, if you're trubbish, what else are we gonna treat
I don't
you
know.
as?
Listen, I don't want to. I'm not gonna take this kind of insult.
Anyway, Storm and Callisto decide to do a one-on-one for the fate of who is the king of the Morlocks or queen.
Yeah,
of
it's
the
gonna
Morlocks.
it's out of nowhere because like she just says like I'm gonna duel you. Like Storm had like
It's so funny too that she's like, yeah, okay, like Callisto's like 100%. I'll give up my crown if I lose to you.
Well, because she's like, she tells Storm you can't use any mutant powers, so it's 1v1 with
lightsabers.
But they beat the X-Men. The X-Men were fucking toast at this point, and Storm just like, hey, 1v1 me, you fucking noob. And it was like, okay. Like,
It's
comes out of
because-
nowhere.
She does say, if you back down from this challenge, everyone here will view you as a coward.
I know,
Makes
but
sense.
but-
That a defeated enemy, if you're like, I'm too scared to 1v1 you, it shows weakness.
I would just be. I mean, I see like the way Callisto seems so far. Like she's not that honorable. I would see her being like whatever.
Yeah,
I want.
that too.
Like,
It's like she's not like an honorable person. She's just like she was literally she stole man to rape him.
yeah.
Yeah, and she sent Leech, the little boy, up to the surface to lure Cyclops down here.
Specifically
Like,
lore.
And she like used deception, try to make him think he was dead. Like nothing's established that Callisto will go through.
Yeah,
this.
it's just it's funny to me because Storm says it like it. At its face, it makes sense a little, like what Phil said, but also like Storm is talking as if she fully understands the political structure that
That
these
too.
sewer
How did
people
she know that they abide by dueling rules of
Well,
like
that's what
I
I
lose
wondered,
my
too.
estate?
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it is, again, if you think about it more of like a tribal sense, it's like, if I can beat your leader, you have to show me some respect, but
I feel like this should have been a lot because like Storm doesn't say much. Right? Like that's one problems with the 90s show in general. Every cartoon in general never does Storm any justice, and this is a good example because she barely says anything throughout this episode for the most part.
Yeah.
So she should have said like I noticed
there's
that like
one moment where it looks like the ceiling's coming down on her and she like has to overcome that, but it's so brief and it's not the focal point of the.
Yes, it's
the-
Wolverine
the show.
and Jean as the focal point.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
But like so, in the comics, this was a badass fight scene because it's actually a fight with daggers and it's a fight to the death. And Storm actually fucking tries to cut out Callisto's heart in the comics. Here, they take out fucking lightsabers.
literally like Darth Maul. Like,
Blue,
But
glowing
this is
blue,
keep
and
in
glowing
mind,
red.
this is pre-Phantom Menace.
I noticed that. I actually looked at it, like, what year is
Really?
this?
So George Lucas ripped this off.
Yeah.
That's how it works. You can't have the same idea. You have to rip off the other person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one else had ever thought of what if a sword went out both sides.
And honestly, this is rip off of Star Wars probably too. They're like, we need to have laser swords. Okay, let's just take off fucking lightsabers and make him two of them.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if like that I'll defend Star Wars at any turn, but I don't know if laser swords. I'm gonna be like only George Lucas thought of that. What if swords but laser?
Yeah.
Well, he was probably like one of the first major ones.
He was a visionary.
Laser sword visionary.
Are you going to say like Star Wars be the same about the laser swords? It's very key to the identity. Would you just say?
Oh yeah, no, I know, but like I just think about like anytime I ever saw a laser, I'm like, what if that was a sword?
Anyway,
yes,
they
anyway.
fight each other, and Storm ends up beating Callisto, which made me wonder. It's like, what is her power? Because you see all the other mutants like always using their powers, which is
Yeah.
why I also like the fight scene because it's like, how does his power interact against his power? But Callisto
I
kind of
don't
just
remember
does
what is
nothing.
Callisto's power.
I'm looking it up right now. I forget.
Come
She never
on,
really uses it- she never
you
really
should
uses
know
it
this
much.
like the back of your hand.
The thing is, Callisto. The thing about a lot of characters, especially with Chris Claremont, it's not their powers that define; it's their personality. And Callisto's one of those characters. I never remember her powers, but I remember her personality very, very acutely.
Well,
So
Bleach
she
has
has-
powers and personality, so +1 to Bleach.
So she just has height abilities. So heightened senses, smell, taste, and touch. Yeah.
It has also been suggested that her mutant power grants her tactical brilliance and allows her to see the best way to engage in any given conflict. She still gets beaten by Storm pretty fast.
Yeah, who has, I assume, not that much lightsaber dueling experience.
Yeah.
She
yeah.
also-
So that's another thing. Like in the comics, it makes sense because Storm was a fucking thief. She knows how to use daggers. Where does Storm know how to fucking use lightsaber?
Yeah. Just one thing to point out on why we don't know is one of the things too is Callisto lost her powers in 2005 and never got them back. So that's probably why, like all modern stories, she's just a good fighter.
I know, but even when we read in the 80s, like, did you? I never remember her powers.
Lost her
ever.
Yeah, me
heightened
neither.
senses. Anyway, they beat him, and then Storm's like, basically, now I am your leader, and I'm promoting as my second in command, Callisto. So while I'm out, you guys listen to her, but when I'm back, you gotta listen to me. Like, I own you now. And they're like, okay.
Oh wait, hold on, wait, guys, this is really important. In X3, she was a speedster.
Yeah, they merged team news to make her basically in X3.
Another reason
but-
X3 rules.
But we have to clarify because it's important for the next episode that they offer more. That's not important for the next episode. I don't know what I'm fucking saying. They offer the Morlocks to come and move them to the X Mansion, and Morlocks are like, no, we won't go to the surface until humanity accepts us.
Yep.
We're gonna stay out
It's
here.
like, good luck. All right, see you never.
Also, why would they go with them? They've just been being like, you guys are ugly pieces of shit, you stink. Like, oh, I don't want to live with these guys.
And
I would.
I guess that's kind of what living with Phil and Darryl was like.
I'll be fine if I get a fucking good food and a clean house. I'll be fucking. It's something like a want, motherfucker.
So the episode ends. This is unrelated to the Christmas, but I like that it ends on the stinger of that. Like Jean and Scott kiss each other, and when they come back to thank Wolverine for saving them or saving Scott, Wolverine's gone, and the window's open, and the wind's blowing the curtains, and it ends on like that to be continued. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about the series is that it did like the comic book thing of where it's always trying to set up for what the next adventure is going to be.
That's very true.
I
So
do love
that you're
that
always
as well.
like, oh man, that's cool. I wonder where he went.
That's my favorite thing in comics as well. That's why I love a lot of the very short 60s comics because they all do that basically where it's always never story never ends basically.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of modern books don't do subplots that much anymore.
Yeah.
Which sucks because like you used to have like long runs where you would build these subplots under these arcs. So like this episode, it's all fully wrapped up, but there's the subplot that was there of Wolverine and Jean that now is coming more into fruition and becoming like the C plot becomes a B plot becomes A plot. I always really like that kind of serialized storytelling. So now we're jumping ahead, right?
Yeah, so now we're jumping ahead to the actual X-Men Christmas episode. Hooray!
And so to play into what I was saying before about
so the other.
Storm never getting anything to fucking do. Basically, that was the last time you see the Morlocks until this episode for like 2 seasons. Because they never gave Storm like she had like 3 total character-centric episodes, and that was one of them. This is the second one right here. So like, and it becomes a plot point that Storm never fucking did anything for the Morlocks ever.
Yeah. And so this is what I mean about how jarring it is because the whole opening of this episode is who's going shopping?
It's Jubilee. It's Jubilee, Storm, and Wolverine are going shopping together. And Jubilee has to bring Wolverine along, who she calls a grumpus, and I really appreciate that.
And so
I like that too. I actually, the other night, I was, Chrissy was trying to go to bed, and I'm like, you want to watch a Christmas thing? Well, let's watch a Christmas episode of something.
Did she,
And I
was
made
she
her
like,
watch this.
I wish I had gone to bed?
She didn't remember.
So it's
Yes,
framed a lot
exactly.
where Jubilee's like
I
the
can't believe
orphan.
I
She's
said
like,
that
I've never
first.
had a family to buy Christmas presents for, and like, and it's very sweet at its face. But looking at it now, I'm like, you guys are spending so much money on a bunch of shit, and like we know that there's this like race of downtrodden garbage people that you're supposed to be in charge
Well,
of.
that becomes a plot point.
It becomes a plot point.
Yeah, but it's just like,
Also, that's also how I described the Morlocks. When I was because I didn't
Yeah.
ever watch the first
But,
episode.
like-
I was like, they're basically sewer mutants. And it's like we were talking about how in like something like My Hero Academia, if your quirk is something that's like a villain power, it's like you are definitely more likely to be evil. And I feel like it's the same here, where if your mutation is like less societally acceptable,
Maybe. I feel
you're
like
more likely to
at-
just end up in the sewers.
I feel like to
than
at least
the
defend My
X-Men.
Hero Academia. I
Like,
feel like there are some
what can
people
you
that
do for
they
Tar
look
person?
like they're evil, but they're good guys.
I mean, that's a major arc in the tournament arc of that kind of exploring that concept. But like it's
Yeah,
more that like
right.
our heroes are the X-Men and they're supposed to be protecting, mutants from a world that hates and fears them. And they're really neglecting these like really, really vulnerable people here.
It shows classism
And, like,
still exists within the mutant hierarchy.
Yeah, but like, and I understand that like that's the point, and they're going for that. But it's weird that like this is now like season 3 or whatever, and like the X-Men haven't made any steps, and I'm still supposed to be like, these guys are great.
Yeah.
They're only attacking the symptom. They never attack the systemic
Well,
issues
that's
that lead to these classes.
That's the problem with superheroes in general.
Yes,
beat up
for
criminals,
sure.
Yeah.
Don't address poverty.
You just
But,
throw someone in jail, they'll correct themselves.
So I picked this episode because I remember hating this as a fucking kid. I'm like, this is so fucking corny and cheesy. When I rewatched it, I actually fucking loved it.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot
too.
despite
Yeah.
Yeah, so my favorite part specifically is while the Storm, Wolverine, and Jubilee are Christmas shopping, Gambit and Jean were planning Christmas dinner, and Gambit's trying to add Cajun flavoring to this.
I think this is really funny.
It's so funny.
And I think it makes perfect sense because you never see these characters interact, like Gambit and Jean Grey. But it makes sense Gambit wanted to add Cajun style stuff to cooking, being the Asian Cajun all the time.
Yep.
And but she's legit like furious. Like she seems like she wants to murder. Like she says
She's like, this is my domain. You stay out of this. The day I let you help me is the day I stop being a cook.
Yeah, like it's like she's like furious at him, and the other have to calm her down. Basically.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of stuff that I really like about the X-Men.
Yes.
Is like this is just fun interpersonal drama intercut between superheroic stuff, and like the whole episode is basically Jean and Gambit. Like it just keeps cutting to them every once in a while, just fighting, and it's like it makes sense because Jean is like trying to make like a traditional dinner, and he's just like, no, this tastes like bland ass garbage.
Well, that's why
Yeah.
X-Men, like you're saying, are good in general. I think is because
A
they
family
do
of
live
friends
together.
that butt heads.
They are kind of like a big family unit. Yeah, and I think that's why, to me, they're some of my favorite comic characters, is because I can think of their personality.
That's
and how
why
they
we
interact
said
with
this
each
stuff
other
about like
more so
Callisto.
than
Is like
most
we
other
know these
superheroes.
characters so well that sometimes their powers don't even matter at all.
That's why we always, when you guys say, "What's the guy's power?" Like a lot of times we don't know because we don't care. We care about the characters, not the powers.
Sure, but then
I mean, it's the same kind of thing like when you read fantasy. Like when we were talking about like Game of Thrones, there's a lot of people that like show up a lot in the background for a while that I couldn't tell you who they are, and then when they are important, it re-exposits like these are all the roles and stuff you need to know about them instead of them just being like, I know them as their relationship.
Sometimes this stuff can supplement it. Like knowing someone like a character in Game of Thrones' history, like their family history. Like you don't need to know what family they belong to. You get a strong personality, but knowing like Stannis is a Baratheon helps paint who he is.
Yeah, but that's the same kind of thing. Like sometimes, like a character like Callisto, her powers are like supplemental on why she's like a fighter and everything, but they're not like the important part. So for some characters that are not like my favorite, like I'm not like a huge Callisto stan.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm just like it's flavor that supplements it, but it's not really necessary to enjoy Morlock stories.
Mm-hmm. So as they're out shopping, they go out to an ice skating rink. Jubilee and Wolverine do, and they're skating, and then they see an ambulance up on like an overpass that drives off of the overpass and then goes to slam into the ice, but Storm like whisks it with very strong wind and sets it down onto the ice. And then Morlocks get out of the ambulance and they start going to the back of the ambulance to fetch supplies out. And Wolverine goes to stop them, and this is where he's like, this episode's full of him being super racist against the Morlocks.
Yeah.
Yes, he fucking hates them.
It's just, it's so ridiculous because they're clearly in there stealing medicine.
Yep.
Like everybody knows. And also they live in the sewers. They don't have any need for like money. And Wolverine's just like, now you're stealing from ambulances. You guys are even lower than the scum you were before. And like, what? Everyone knows they need medicine. That's clearly what it is.
And it's revealed that they need medicine because Leech, the little green alien kid, is sick and they don't know what's wrong with him. They tried to get a doctor to help, but Leech like accidentally leached power from like one of the nurses or something. So the doctor's like, you're on your own. Like, we're not going to touch you guys because you guys are dangerous.
They said his power's on the fritz.
Yep.
So like he just keeps like lashing out so they can't take him to the hospital.
Yep. And so
it's almost like this downtrodden class doesn't have access to affordable healthcare, and it causes a systemic issue.
And so they go into the sewers. go see him, and this is where we get stuff of Callisto basically shitting on Storm and everyone else because they're like, "You are our queen, like you are a leader. You just abandoned us." Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for not being in an episode saying anything
thanks
for
nothing.
2 seasons, you fucker.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I was busy. And this is Wolverine's just like shitting on them. And while this is happening, Jubilee came down with a stack of presents that she had bought for the X-Men. And she sees their super small like twig of a tree with a broken ornament on top.
And there's this young girl that's basically like, while all the adults are in there like doing the medical stuff, there's this young girl that Jubilee is like spending time
She has
with.
big anime eyes. She has massive anime eyes.
It's the most like it's like how the how to draw anime 90s books. It's that kind of face.
But everyone else is drawn in 90s X-Men style, like like very standard like comic stuff. But she's just there to be super cute and doe-eyed, saying, "Is Leash gonna be okay, Mrs. Jubilee?" And Jubilee's like, "I don't know."
And a lot of it
girl.
is. A lot of it's like really sweet, but it's so ham-fisted where she's like, I got this tree myself. And it's just like you said, like it's this like garbage like rope with a can on it or something. And she's like, Leech went up to the surface and like that, he went up there just to get us this stuff. And then like she tours their like Christmas dinner and they're like eating out of garbage cans, like some weird soup. And she's just like, yeah, Leech got us all this stuff too. And they're like really letting it on. Like Leech is nice. These people are really sad.
Yeah.
And it's very even the little kid is like, you can eat with us.
Yeah, she's offering them, like, she's like, oh, you guys could definitely have Christmas dinner with us. And Jubilee's just like, you guys are eating garbage. But that's when she gives them the presents, yeah.
So that's a subplot of the show actually, because Jubilee's like excited to give a present for the first time, and like she's carrying the presents, like even when they're like, we gotta leave presents behind at the crashed ambulance because we gotta go help the Morlocks. Jubilee still takes her presents because she wants to give them to the X-Men to have presents. To give out presents for the first time, basically.
Yeah.
But now she's like, I'm gonna give it to the Morlocks who need it more.
It's all really touching. Like I'm mocking it because it's like so on the nose, but like it's good. It's done very well.
That's why I didn't like it as a kid, because it felt very cheesy. But like while watching it now, I'm like, this is very competent for a Christmas episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's very fitting. And while this is happening, Wolverine's own subplot, because Storm has her thing with being like for failing the Morlocks, and Wolverine's thing is that he's basically like both a racist against the Morlocks, and he's tried to use his healing blood before to heal other people. Like that's what becomes central to this. Is they're like, hey, give him a blood transfusion. Your blood can cure him. And he's like, I don't know. It's like out of like the 25 times I've tried it, like 20 people have died and 2 have lived.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the other 3.
And
I should have said 22.
Yeah. And they originally try to take him back to the mansion, but Wolverine's like, Leech is too weak. You'll kill him if you do, so we have to do stuff here. So they like call to get Beast to come down because Beast is like the doctor. But he can't.
And,
so
they give him the blood transfusion, but it doesn't seem to work. And Wolverine gets upset about this because he hates this like feeling of someone dying due to like his blood not working.
Oh, and a very important subplot. Meanwhile, Beast is not here because he is in his lab trying to use fancy beakers full of chemicals to make the ultimate cranberry glaze.
Yeah, and he explodes his face and he's covered in cranberries.
Yeah.
Also, like at the beginning of the episode,
Covered in cranberries.
He's trying to make some like Christmas brew, and he's like, it's not alcoholic, but it's still good, or something like that.
Yeah, so that's why he didn't go Christmas shopping with them, but he joins them now at the Morlock tunnels.
Yep, and it's once he gets down there, we realize that like that Wolverine's blood had worked, and that now Leech is going to make it, and you're like, oh yay! And like the Storm decides to give her the authority back to Callisto, like to fully make her the Morlock Queen.
She gives her back the crown and scepter of power, which I don't remember that being a symbol in the first episode.
I like that, again, she knows all these things about these people.
And she like literally apologizes, like, I'm sorry for being a shitty leader. I'm never going to show up in these tunnels again. Here's the scepter back. Goodbye forever, basically.
Do they show up in the show again?
I don't think so. I think it's like
And then they're like, let's all enjoy Christmas together down here. And then Rogue's here for some reason. And she's like, oh, you know who's going to be real upset about this? And that cuts back to Jean and Gambit with their giant Christmas dinner finished. And they're like, where is everyone?
I found it weird because I'm like, they couldn't bring that down to the tunnels. Like, Beast could get there pretty quickly.
Yeah,
it's
like that's what I mean. It's like
they can eat better food.
yeah, like you can have Christmas dinner together without having to eat all the garbage.
You know what, Ryan? That's rude. Calling their food garbage when it's like that's their culture's
Yeah,
food.
who's the racist now? They're all
They explicitly say like, we're eating whatever scraps we can find. By definition, it's garbage.
And they might revere that garbage, Ryan.
They don't. They're really sad about it.
And that's the X-Men Christmas special.
Yeah, it ends with Jubilee calling Professor X. Professor X is like, don't worry about not coming up to us for Christmas, Jubilee. You truly are the true spirit of Christmas. And
Yeah, pretty
that's
much.
all it is.
He says like, you gave up your Christmas to be with people less fortunate. I couldn't ask for a better gift than seeing my student like learn these lessons, and it's really nice. I always like the Professor X Jubilee relationship a lot.
Yeah, so now we're getting into the 2000 series,
What is it, like Wings of an Angel or something like that?
Wings of an Angel.
Yeah.
So,
On Angel's
On
Wings.
the wings.
This show is just so much more like artfully done in the way the scenes are framed and everything.
I mean, it has an extra like 10 years of animation on it. Like,
I like the original X-Men more just because it was filling me with that early season 1, 2, 3 of Simpsons vibe where it's like so clearly hand animated that I love seeing that craft. Whereas this style of animation blends too much in my mind and character design with what comic book cartoons became.
that's actually a really good point, I think.
that is a very good point. And that's why I do respect the 90s cartoon, because it was very unique, but
And
basically-
super colorful too, like
Yeah.
boisterous.
basically after like 1996 or something like that, all of them became computer animated. That's why the very unique style died out, because
Yeah.
everyone just and that's one of the reasons why it died out, is because it was very hard to get the old style consistent, which is why Batman TES changed to a more cohesive, simpler style as well, because the organic style. I love the TES original organic looking style with the more rounded edges. But if you watch like certain episodes, like the Clayface episodes, you'll see it be done like shit and being done perfectly from episode to episode, because different studios could not get the actual animation to be consistent. But
And
there is a charm
yeah.
in that different unique style though.
I definitely agree, because like when I see a scene from the animated Batman series or like any of the Bruce Timm stuff,
Even like
or,
a background.
yeah, or like the X-Men series or the Spider-Man series from the 90s, I could tell what shows they are right away. Where like X-Men Evolution, even though it looked prettier and like more consistent and like the actual animation was much more, like Phil said, artfully done, it could have been 5 or 6 different shows.
Yes,
But I don't, what I meant by the framing of it was less the actual animation and style as much as like the way the scenes blend
the
together.
shots
Like,
are
okay.
purposeful.
the shots like of Angel standing and looking. They'll take time to like have him.
Oh,
wistfully
okay,
look
okay, I
and
see.
decide
Yeah,
what
there's
he wants
there's
to
no
do.
the original 90s X-Men has a lot of very close like faces in the frame. That's very bizarre.
And there's no scenes without people talking. Like the 90s one just goes from dialogue to dialogue.
That's true. That's
And-
true.
X-Men TS is very functional. I feel X-Men Evolution is very purposefully, artfully done.
I can see that.
That's one reason I do like it, because this feels like X-Men TS feels like I was rushed to fit the plot into 30 minutes.
Right.
This feels like and that's one of the advantages of telling the original story, because the
Yeah.
story is not really in the comics, so it's able to breathe and space it out as well as they wanted to.
Oh man, I feel like that's what I liked about the 90s one, because when I was watching this, there were times of it where I was just bored watching it, where I'm like, I feel like
my God.
I should be more interested than I am, but I'm not.
That's why I love it, because I love the slower pace, because I love the somber tone, which is why I view this as back when I was a kid, I was like, this is the way superior Christmas episode, because I love somber Christmas stuff. I don't really love the cheesy stuff as much, and so this is my Christmas shit. Right
This
I'm
rules
shocked.
because it makes me sad.
I'm shocked, because usually I would fall right into that slide camp, but I am so on Team Darryl for these ones. Like,
Yeah,
where,
and
like,
I like
I
somber
usually
stuff,
like those
too.
like more somber, slow-paced, introspective kind of things, but like I just really loved those 90s episodes.
Yeah, they're just
You
a
guys
lot of
didn't-
fun.
Okay,
I liked the Angel episode. Don't get me wrong. Like, I didn't dislike it. I wasn't bored, but like I liked the frenetic, fast-paced, quippy 90s stuff more.
I was gonna say I am very on Team Sly here. Like I liked the Angel one so much more.
Yeah, I don't think it's comparable. I think this is like saying, oh, I like Star Wars Christmas special compared to Star Wars episode.
That seems a little ridiculous and
For me,
reductive.
this was the turning point for I said I hated the show. This was the turning point for me where I'm like, this show is better than X-Men TS by like a mile. This was what changed my entire opinion. And you guys were like, it's okay. I'm like, so that's why I'm disappointed. I was
like, I still think this episode's pretty good, and you're like, that's like saying the
it seems
holiday
like
specials.
Daryl didn't say that. Daryl seems like
Yeah,
bored.
you can be mad at me. I'm the one that said this was boring.
But I don't think they're even comparable. I think, and I always feel like that's an insult to like what Phil said. They put so much effort into the shots and stuff. I feel like it's comparing them is insulting because it's so expertise is so functional and it's so trying to be artful. I feel like it's an insulting to the animators and the writers who created this to compare them. That's my opinion.
So if they're listening, I'm sorry, I guess.
we knew that if they're listening, they tuned out the first minute they heard our voices.
Yeah.
Like, fuck these guys.
So what happens in this Christmas episode?
So first of all, the writer of this is Boyd Kirkland. He passed away a while back, but he's well known for being a frequent producer on a lot of cartoons. He produced a lot of Batman TS episodes, and he completely wrote, directed, and produced Batman Sub-Zero, the second Batman.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so
That's awesome. That movie's so good.
Yes, he has a thing for ice focused stories apparently.
Yeah.
He likes the chill. He likes somberness.
Yeah. So the story opens with Angel by himself. He's getting in his fancy Manhattan apartment. Basically, he's getting calls from his mom saying, "Warren, if you're there, please, we want to talk to you. So everything's okay. Like, we forgive you. Come back to us." Basically, so you can tell like there's some distance between him and his family. He's by himself on Christmas Day. And while this message is recording, Warren watching on the news. There is a fire breaking out, and they rescued the teenage daughter, but they couldn't rescue the mom because she's in a wheelchair. The fireman couldn't, and so Warren basically goes to the rooftop, unfurls his angel
This
wings.
is like really powerful stuff because the one who was rescued is like begging for the firemen to let her in to save her. And they won't let her because like they're not going to let her run into a burning building.
She's
and
crying and trying to get inside.
Because she's not like, and the thing that I really loved about it is she's not saying like you go save her. She's like, if you're not going to, please give me the chance to. And like that really stood out to me.
I am almost with Sly here. I'm like, how can you compare?
Yeah, like it's not.
It's crazy to me.
Like, might as well not even fucking write that. Don't even try to put effort to the scene. Just fucking put shit on the paper and down. And Ryan will fucking love it. Whatever. But yeah, so Angel saves the old lady and puts her in a park nearby, and the daughter sees her she's crying because she thinks her mom's dead, but she sees her mom on the park bench, and she's like, "Wow, it's a miracle!" And the mother tells her, "An angel saved me. Like an angel from heaven came and brought me here and saved me."
And then they immediately put her in a home because they think she's crazy. No, I'm just...
It's a good setup for the episode because now it's like people start to talk about like it's Christmas and there's an angel like saving people, and it if you look at the way Angel looks, if he came down to rescue you, he literally just looks like an angel from the Bible or something.
Yes.
Or at least our modern like interpretations of.
An additional thing that like gets stated later, where I was like, oh, this is actually very interesting and unique about this universe. Is they say that people don't know about mutants yet, because I was like, how do you not just think it's just a mutant with wings? And it's because people think that it's just like humanity. There are no mutants running around. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, in X Evolution, it was a secret war. For the first 2 seasons, it was a secret war between mutants and humans. Season 3 becomes more of a straight X-Men series, which is why when I think the series really takes off. But this is still season 2, when the show was still hiding the fact that mutants exist. So cuts to X-Mansion, and this is some of the stuff that I didn't like when I first watched the show. But it's basically X-Men at the X-Mansion interacting, and Nightcrawler grabs a piece of mistletoe and he tries to put it over Kitty Pryde, and so he's chasing her around the X-Mansion, trying to make out of her, and Kitty's like, "Get the fuck away from me!" And then Kurt's trying so desperately to kiss her that he accidentally kisses Iceman, and they're both like, "Yuck, gross, boy kissing."
It is so Well, I guess it's early 2000s. But...
It's early 2000s, but it's that kind of. It's not too long, 2001, so it's still the same mentality. But you get some nice scenes where Professor X is talking to Wolverine, and Professor X is like, "Oh, to be young again," looking at Kurt and Kitty, and Wolverine's like, "Yeah, glad that's over."
I like that. I like Wolverine in both of these episodes.
Yes. And so
He's such a grumpus.
yeah. So he offers Wolverine like a chance to stay at the X Mansion because everyone else is going home for Christmas except for a few people, Cyclops and Rogue, Beast and Professor X. And he offers Wolverine to stay. Wolverine's like, no, I'm going on my own because I'm Wolverine alone. Or fuck you, X-Men. And so meanwhile, this is a romance between Rogue and Cyclops that.
Yeah, it seems like they swapped out the love triangle of Jean, Scott, and Wolverine for Jean, Scott, and Rogue now.
It's because Wolverine's an adult and they're teenagers.
Yeah, they'd be pedophile in that case. But people hate this love triangle. I thought it made sense because basically, Jean is like the perfect girl everyone loves, and in this scene, everyone's like adoring her as she's giving out presents, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Rogue basically wants to be that, but she can't be. So basically, she wants to be Jean, and Jean gets everything, including Scott. So like Rogue is basically like wishes she could be that. She's basically like the outsider of
yeah.
the X-Men.
I think it's I think it's a good subversion because there's so much of just like, at least from watching the original animated series, of just like, oh, Jean, like both of them saying it so much where it's nice to be like, now here's like people liking Scott a whole bunch.
Yeah. Also, when the show like
This is secretly why Sly likes. He's like, Cyclops would be popular with the women.
I do think this is one of the best versions of Cyclops, but it's more because everyone.
It's more because he's likable. I feel.
I know. I'm just kidding. I was just making a joke.
But and also, I feel like the '90s show takes away a lot of Jean's agency in the love triangle, and it's nice to see it inverted, where it's the guy is the one that's the object of possession, more so than the girl, which we see every single fucking time in a love triangle.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I agree.
And so Rogue gives Cyclops early Christmas present, sweater. And Cyclops like, oh, I didn't expect this. I don't have anything for you yet. And Rogue's like blushing, saying, oh, don't worry about it. And Jean's watching them like interact, and she could tell she's like getting jealous about the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So then next day, everyone's getting ready to leave.
I just want to say, when I saw this scene, I imagined, because it's Cyclops holding up the sweater and Rogue is standing there, and I just pictured the Jimmy Olsen issue where Superman's burning him with his heat vision, and I was like, what if Cyclops just roasted this sweater?
Listen to our Patreon episode if you want to hear us talk about that episode or that comic of why did Superman burn Jimmy's sweater? They gave him for Father's Day.
That's true.
Because he adopted Jimmy Olsen.
And this is why I don't get why Darryl's like this, because he always talks about using panels and pages to tell a story, and Jean never makes it clear that she hates, she's jealous of Rogue, but through her, just the few scenes they show of her, you could tell like she doesn't like her being with Cyclops for Christmas by himself.
Well, yeah, you can like tell that, but I feel like I'm trying to think of the right word here. I feel like it's been done in a lot of other cartoons too, or maybe I don't watch enough bad ones to be like, you can do this better. Like they're showing and not telling, which is good, but it's also like I expect that from good media.
And also, there's another thing to clarify. 2001, you had like Batman TS, Super TS. There really was no Marvel cartoon on this level of subtlety.
That's very true. That's very
true. Like that's another thing. You're comparing it to 2009 to 19. A lot of stuff I'm going to say I love about this episode seems quaint now, but especially one thing that made really changed me in this episode, especially when I watched in 2003 or whatever, I never saw a Christmas episode address religion at all. They've always been Santa Claus.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and I'm like, and now, and it's one of those things like, now you're like, whatever. I don't know if they do it as often now, but I feel like in general, people are more open to stuff in general now, talking about different relationship types and stuff like that. I imagine it's less common now, but I never saw religion addressed in Christmas episodes. It's always neutral, the American, Santa, good feelings kind of stuff. But this episode specifically talks about religion.
Yeah, which is interesting.
So, Warren is reading a newspaper about himself saving that lady, and he sees a guy getting mugged in the Central Park where he's reading newspaper. And Warren flies by and picks up the thief, takes back the wallet, and leaves the guy hanging on the flagpole. And the guy who got mugged is telling the police officer, "Oh, the angel came!" And the guy's like, "Okay, now it's time for you to go to home, sir."
Yeah.
But then Warren flies by and drops the wallet, and they're like, "Wow, angels are real." And on the news, they're talking about it, and people are show some non-dialect at all reaction on the street of just the crazy guy saying angels are among us, and people are like trying to get away from him, and some people are laughing at that concept of it. And Beast and Professor X are with Jean and Scott now with the now empty X mansion.
Rogan Scott.
What I said, Jean, right? Rogue and Scott.
Yeah, because Jean's away on holiday.
Yeah. And they make it clear it's fucking boring there because Beast is like, let's go recount everything in the room. And right now they're playing chess by the fireplace, so it's really like a quiet time.
Some people find chess fulfilling and not boring.
Yeah. Chess is a good game.
Like Beast.
So, but seems Rogue's clearly bored. That was my point saying that. Rogue are Supremes what chess is.
I'll let it slide this time.
So, and they're hearing about the Angel news, and they're like, "What?" And Professor X like, this might be a mutant." And so Rogue and Rogue offers like, "Hey, maybe me and Scott could go check it out. Go to Sing, check it out." He's like, "That's a good idea. Go, the two of you." And they start investigating all the people. Again, no dialogue whatsoever, just a montage of them going from person to person who saw the angel and questioning them. And this scene was where like this is a really special episode because they go to a diner and Rogue is like, "Isn't that stupid? They all believe in angels. That's ludicrous." And Sky's like, "I kind of believe in angels." And he talks about when he was orphaned and he thought he lost his brother in the same accident like his parents. And when he found out his brother Alex Havoc was alive, he thought a guardian angel was protecting him, and that idea comforted him. And Rogue is like, "Wow, I'm sorry, I didn't expect you to think that way." And she apologized for being beastly insensitive. And then we cut to one of the bridges in, I think, Brooklyn Bridge. And Magneto, basically, they don't say it's Magneto, but you could tell a guy in Magneto's, like,
it's that they show him, like, move his, like, hands, and then you see some of the steel wires on the suspension bridge snap. Yeah, and so I was like, there he is.
And, well, in this scene, but he was in previous scenes like Shadowing Angel, like he was in scene before Shadowing Angel. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but at least in the movies he wore a black trench coat and a black hat a lot of times. So I'm like, this is a very clear indicator that it's Magneto visually. Yeah. And so Angel sees that Magneto is basically sabotaging this bridge. He doesn't see that Magneto's doing it, but he sees that cars are crashing.
He sees like there's an accident going on, and so Angel flies over to help the people. And this is when like Angel's now in like a suit, because before he was just flying around like with his wings, but now he has like a kind of like an X-Men suit. And
a car flies off the bridge, and he before it hits the water, he like pulls the people out.
Yeah, he saves all the people inside of it. But then Magneto starts manipulating cables. Basically, the crowd gathers around Warren and start crowding him. And Magneto subtly, while Angel's not paying attention, he gets a piece of metal wire to wrap around the Angel's legs, and Angel tries to kick it off him, and in the process, he accidentally flaps his wings and knocks off the girl he just previously saved from the water. And she falls into the water, and now she actually does fall into the water. Angel jumps into the water to save her into the ice-cold water, and he pulls her out, but now when he pulls her out this time...
Doesn't somebody come up?
It's Magneto.
Yeah, Magneto comes up, and he's like, "I saw him knock her into the water."
Yep.
He's a fraud. He set up these emergencies just to save people. He's a fraud. And everyone's like, "Wow, he's a freak. He's a freak of nature." And they all start turning on. The crowd starts cheering on Angel after Magneto basically turns the crowd against him. And so Rogue and Scott are in the music store to hear people talking about the Angel, about how they're on the bridge and how he saved the girl. Now she's in the hospital. So they decide to go to the hospital to investigate into the matter. And Angel goes to visit the girl as well because he feels sorry. He clearly, through no actual dialogue, you can tell he feels remorse for what happened to her and feels guilt over it. And he goes to watch her. And after leaving her bedroom, he dresses up as a doctor. And Rogue and Cyclops are waiting outside, trying to talk to the doctor to see the girl. And they see the wings fly out of Warren's hospital coat. And they say, "Oh, it's him," and start chasing after him. But he flies away because he's a fucking Angel.
They basically have a meeting at the church where the parents are praying because
the doctor said he overheard the doctor saying that they're at the church praying for the girl.
Right. And so this scene here takes place in the church where Scott and Rogue are looking for Angel there. Angel went there to go see the parents, I guess. And Magneto's there, and he talks to Angel, and he's like, or to Warren, and he's like, "Hey, it really sucks that people don't trust us, right? Don't you see that you do good things and then?"
But he says, I like the way he frames it, like specifically, like, you think that they're gonna accept you by you saving them all the time, but they turned on you immediately, like we did one thing today. They all were like, "You're a freak, you're a monster." Like You think by saving them they're gonna make them they're gonna love you. No, they're gonna turn you the second and any second and then call you treat you like a freak, and which I thought was a really clever way of Magneto to frame the conversation.
But to me, it was bizarre. Maybe it's because like I was extrapolating what I know of Magneto onto him, but I'm like, you're the one that instigated this. You're the one that said, "Hey, look, he did that on purpose. They pushed that girl into the water."
But that's the point. He's manipulating more.
And I think he probably from his perspective, he's like, this could happen anytime you save someone. They could.
I thought, like, I always thought that Magneto would be like, he would just let humans show how nasty they are, like on their own, rather than like, I need to manipulate you in order to get you to see that I'm right.
Like he would have enough lack in faith in humanity. To just
like I always felt like Magneto would be the kind of guy like he didn't even need to push that girl, and he'd just be like, no, they're just gonna turn
first
on
of all,
you, like trust me.
Here's one thing I people don't get about Magneto. He's a bad guy. In X-Men movies, he does bad things. Like he kidnaps Rogue and tries to make her die for him instead of him using Magneto Machine. Like he's a bad guy. He manipulates people all the time. Just because he has a certain metamotic, he is a bad guy. He is definitely in his line to manipulate people to get a fast result. The ends justify the means for him. That's one point. And two, his point is that all it took is for one person to call him out, and everyone, the whole entire crowd should.
That's very true.
So, like, it is very in his nature to manipulate them, and his point still stands, even though he manipulated them.
Right, because I was thinking that too, where I'm like, he probably, in his perspective, is like, this could happen anytime Angel saves someone, but I need it to happen now so that I can, like, recruit him. But this is not something that's out of the question, that people just turn on him.
I think Sly has the good point, is he didn't pretend to be the whole mob. They just needed one excuse to hate him, and he gave them the excuse, and they took it right away.
Yeah. And so, but Angel's still like, fuck off. I'm not going to join your little racket. And Magneto's like, this could have been easy, but now I have to kidnap you. So he uses metal to bind Warren. But Warren manages to wiggle out of the metal wrappings that Magneto uses, and he starts flying towards trying to fly out. But now they're in the center of the church, and the parents see an angel fighting. Looks like a guy in red and black. And Magneto starts. He captures Angel again, but now Rogue and Cyclops show up, and they start helping Angel. And there's a fight scene. Another reason why I like it better in terms of writing is because this is more like the comics where each individual event matters. It's not just they quip and punch each other, and it could be arbitrary how you cut the scenes. Because it's a very specific flow where Cyclops frees Angel, he blasts Magneto, Magneto falls to the ground, Rogue absorbs Magneto's powers, and Magneto tries to escape after having Magneto's powers, and then Rogue chases him. And then they have a Magneto duel above the streets of New York. And then Magneto wins, and Rogue is sent flying. And Angel recovers from before and manages to rescue her before she falls to the ground. A very concise, well illustrated fight scene that actually has a sequence of events that matter.
Yeah, it's like a good flow to it.
Yeah. And that's another reason why X-Men Evolution that's one of my favorite cartoons, because even in general, even nowadays, I feel like a lot of cartoons don't do it as often.
I
just to plug Avatar again here, that's why I love it. All the fights in that is that they have a very specific use of powers to achieve certain goals. As opposed to many shows which are just like we beam at each other or we punch each other.
I mean, we've complained about that in the comics too. Like, I think it's an action trope that just like sucks. That like it's not a
trope. It's more like I don't know how to write a good fight scene.
Yeah.
It's just lazy writing, isn't it? Like, we call it a trope, but it's a trope that happens because of laziness.
But I feel like most tropes are lazy writing. But
it is. That's why they're tropes, because you can't come up with something original, so you just resort to something that's
exactly.
So then after Magneto gets away, but Angel does save Rogue, and they meet up in the hospital afterwards, and they talk, and basically they pitch the X-Men to him. But Warren's like, what's different about your group than Magneto's racket? Like, am I just gonna be just another soldier in your dumb little wars? And like Cyclops tries to explain, like, we're trying to help mutants learn their powers, but it's very clear. And this is another reason why I like this episode, because in like an X-Men TAS, they'll end up in a happy note, but it's clear Warren isn't buying what they're selling. He's just like, fuck off, and he just goes to see the little girl at the end because she's finally recovering. It's like this nice little scene where Rogue is like tearing up seeing the family reunited with their daughter, and the little girl saying how an angel saved her again. No, she's saying how the angel came to her while she's in the hospital. She saw him. It's just another nice little moment.
Yeah.
And now there's another reason why it's my favorite cartoons. You get to see all the X-Men at home with their families, with all the different traditions. Jean's with her typical American Midwest family going out for Christmas tree shopping. Rogue, Kitty is celebrating Hanukkah with her family. Probably the first time I ever saw Menorah in fucking cartoons.
Oh, Rugrats. Rugrats.
Oh, Rugrats. Yeah. But Nightcrawler goes to see his family in Germany. Storm is having coffee with her, I think, cousin. The men start throwing snowballs at them, and Storm's like, fuck you, makes a snowstorm at them. Wolverine's by himself playing pool. And Beast and Professor X are drinking coffee. And this is one reason why I this show completely eclipses X-Men TS, because X-Men Evolution is an X-Men show. Well, X-Men TS is mostly a Wolverine show for the most part, with a few select episodes about certain characters. There's Wolverine section episodes about him going Weapon X. Those all feature great character moments with all the X-Men. There's never a moment in X-Men Evolution where I feel like this character should speak up more or whatever, because it feels like every character feels fleshed out. Well, X-Men TS is always some, like, Darryl mentioned the wedding. In the wedding episodes, Jingo gets kidnapped. Cyclops is like, oh no. Cyclops doesn't even say, oh no. Cyclops never says anything. Jingo gets kidnapped. It takes 2 episodes. It takes until part 2 of that 5-parter for Cyclops to say anything about Jingo getting kidnapped. That is so common in that show, because that show is so expedient that so many characters don't get any moments of shine a lot of times, because I feel like they should have something to say.
I mean, I don't disagree with any of that, for sure. Truly an Xmas miracle.
Yeah. X-Men Xmas.
X-Men Xmas. So, similarly, we opened this episode talking about the war on holidays. So I just want to mention that Potsdam podcast on our network, flyingmachine.network, is the website. Jay has done many parts on the war on Christmas, and every year she does a war on Christmas episode, and it's always really, really enjoyable. So you should check that out. And you could get that at flyingmachine.network, like I said, or anywhere that you find this show. Her show probably also is. And you can join our Discord, and the links are all in the show notes, all that kind of stuff. Follow us on Twitter, Divisive Issues, and everything else. Yeah, you guys have any other special holiday greetings?
Enjoy the holidays.
Yeah.
Try not to despair too much if things are looking down. You know, things always get better.
I feel
or they
like
can get better.
That's pretty uniform advice, I think, for the last few years. Try not to despair too much.
Yeah. Sometimes you're a little girl and you get thrown into an ice cold lake and it looks like you feel like you're going to die, but you can pull through.
If an angel comes and saves you.
Yeah, sometimes we got to be our own angels.
Yeah, sometimes you got to be your own angel. And don't be a grumpus.
Don't be a grumpus.
Okay, so thank you all for listening to another holiday extravaganza here at Divisive Issues. I've been covered in scorpions.
Shit, that is the best one.
I've been a grumpus.
I've been covered in cranberry glaze.
I've been stroking a picture of Santa Claus, going, Gene. I don't know why it's Santa Claus.
Stay in continuity.
Covered with scorpions. Covered with scorpions.
No! Covered with scorpions!